Bonjour and welcome to yet another Pauper deck tech. As you can see, I've indeed found some time today to bring to you another Pauper deck, and today it's going to be a bit of a different deck since I want to talk to you about Golgari Tortured Existence, which is a mid-rangey toolbox deck, I would say, with a lot of graveyard interactions. So please don't play any Boyuka box and please don't play any Relic of Progenitus against me when I'm playing it, and then it's fine. But I think talking too much about the deck without seeing the actual cards doesn't make a lot of sense in this case, so let's get right into the deck tech. So the first thing you will probably notice are the lands, since you can only see the lands more or less. And you see we are running a lot of swamps and not a lot of forests, and also some Bojuka box, since we are a black deck and we can, in my opinion, afford to play these lands even though they enter the battlefield tapped. They just give some nice utility against other graveyard based or decks that at least make some use of their graveyard. It's just nice to have some Boyuka box. So the reason why we are running so many black mana sources is first because Tortured Existence needs a lot of black mana if you want to use it often, since it not only costs a black mana to play or to cast, but it also needs black mana to be activated. And Crypt Rats as well need lots of black mana if you want to be able to handle everything the opponent plays, or nearly everything, since you will probably never pay 8 mana into it, but you might pay like 2 to 4, maybe even 5 mana. So you need a lot of swamps because of this, and you still of course need some green lands, some forests, rot farms, jungle hollows, because on the one hand you need some tutors for Tortured Existence, since we are of course only allowed to play 4 copies, but we want to have it basically every game, since I mean the deck is named after the card, so it revolves around it. And that's why we are running 4 copies of Commune with the Gods alongside 3 additional enchantments, which are Vessel of Nascency. So even if we don't find Tortured Existence with our Commune with the Gods, we will probably find Vessel. And with Vessel, we will probably then finally find Tortured Existence by turn 4, 5, or 6, when you really want to be able to utilize Tortured Existence to get ahead in card advantage and start taking over the game. So you see, I already talked about the deck as a toolbox, and you see most of the cards are just 1 or 2 offs. The only exceptions are Stinkweed Int, where I'm running 3 of, 3 Grave Scrabbler as well, and 4 Sakura Tribe Elder. The reason is Sakura Tribe Elder in the early game is a really nice jump blocker, which we can just sacrifice after jumping, so we don't get damage, but we still get a land onto the battlefield, so we can progress our mana. We will find all the black mana we need, and we will be able to use Tortured Existence a bit earlier than we would do otherwise. Grave Scrabbler and Stinkweed Imp are both important parts of the deck, since you see we are trying to get access to the graveyard via Tortured Existence, so it's always nice to have stuff in the graveyard to get access to. Hence we are running a few dredge cards. I'm running 3 Stinkweed Imps since it has dredge 5, and 2 Brown Scales. It only has dredge 2, but it gains us a bit of life whenever we take it to our hand from the graveyard, so it's another nice buffer for the early to mid game, from where on we can then, as I said, take over the game slowly but surely, which this deck is primed for. So Stinkweed Imp on the one hand fills our graveyard. On the other hand, we can just via dredging dredging it, putting it back to our hand, and we can, if we want to, each draw step have a creature in our hand, a new creature, to be able to discard to Tortured Existence. So it's like a double combo, so to speak. And Grave Scrabbler is really nice because it has madness. So when you discard it into Tortured Existence, you not only get back a creature from the graveyard, but you also get to cast it for 2 mana. And when you cast Grave Scribbler via paying madness cost, I can then, as soon as he enters the battlefield, get back another card from the graveyard. So especially if you have multiple Grave Scrabblers, it gets absurd pretty quickly. So apart from these cards that define the deck and build the shell and the engine of the deck, we have some cards to utilize to get ahead and in some cases to not die. Where let's take a look first at the cards we use to get ahead. Those are on the one hand Crozen Tusker, which we are probably always going to cycle to draw a card, or we can also replace this card draw with dredging if we want to. So keep that in mind if it should ever be a good option. You should consider it. And we also get a land from our deck onto our hand. So we will probably never be flooded, and we can make good use of all the mana we are getting from like drawing lands and of course Frozen Tusker and Tribe Elder, since we can sink all of that mana into Tortured Existence or Crypt Rats, for example. We also have Augur of Skulls and Mesmeric Fiend to not build up our hand, but have the opponent discard their hand. We can cast Mesmeric Fiend, and as soon as it enters the battlefield, its ability will trigger, and in response to its ability, we can sacrifice it into Carrion Feeder or Viscera Seer, and then a trigger from it dying will resolve before the enters the battlefield trigger resolves, and the card we are going to exile from the opponent's hand is going to be exiled permanently. And we can probably do that every turn as long as we have Tortured Existence up. So we will turn by turn reduce the opponent's hand until he has nothing left, and we can just attack him with, I don't know, anything since we have all the card advantage, and we can then kill them by attacking with, as I said, anything. We might even kill them with like 10 Stinkweed attacks. It doesn't really matter as long as we have some creatures out and can pick apart their hand with either Mesmeric Fiend or of course Augur of Skulls, which we can both recur with Tortured Existence, and in this case sacrifice to one of the sack outlets, who are also really nice in case we, for example, had to put down Stinkweed or Brown Scale in the early game, but later on want it in the graveyard. We can just sacrifice it into Carrion Feeder or Viscera Seer, and then we are able to dredge it from the graveyard. Let's see, what else do we have? We have, of course, one copy of Thorn of the Black Rose, since everyone is playing Monarch and I want to be Monarch too. I am playing it, and I can recur this card as well to take away Monarch every turn if needed. I mean, it won't probably be needed every turn, but every turn it is needed. We can do it as long as we have it in the graveyard and we have Tortured Existence up. And we can then also utilize the sack outlet to get it back into the graveyard to get another enters the battlefield trigger out of it to become Monarch again. Another creature with a really nice ETB trigger is Tilling Treefolk, since it can bring us back some Boyuka box if needed, if they are milled in the graveyard via Commune, Vessel, or the Dredge cards. It also can get us back Ash Barrens for mana fixing, or Barrenmoor and Tranquil Thicket, and we can this way generate card advantage as well. We also have some cards to protect us from what the opponent is doing in a more direct way, which are Crypt Rats, who function as a recurable board wipe because we have Tortured Existence once again. Fume Spitter, which is more of a targeted removal, so to speak. And we can as well recur it, and it's really nice on boards where there's not many creatures, where you can, for example, jump block one creature, sacrifice it, put a -1/-1 counter on another creature, kill it, or weaken it, and we can do that again and again until we get rid of the board. Or if we can't get rid of the board this way, we can just play Spore Frog, and it's essentially a Fog Frog, so you can sacrifice it at any time and prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. And when you are able to do this on any opponent, on every opponent's turn, they won't be able to deal combat damage to you, and most decks rely on combat damage to kill you. So you have a really nice option of getting free wins via sticking Spore Frog and recurring it via, for example, mono green. Since mono green typically doesn't have, or at least mainboard doesn't have, instant speed removal. Same is partially true for mono white, as long as they can javelin near the frog, and you will just get some free wins. And then the last card I didn't talk about is Battlefield Scrounger. Battlefield Scrounger is in the deck as a way to protect ourselves from milling out or decking. Because as long as we have Threshold, which should be the case starting from turn like 3 or 4, maybe 5 at the latest, we will have Threshold, 7 cards in graveyard, and we can then use the activated ability and put 3 cards from our own graveyard on the bottom of our library. And we can do that once every turn, so we can do it in our turn and in the opponent's turn. So between one upkeep and the next upkeep, we will be able to put 3 or 6 cards, if needed, from our graveyard back to the library, so we don't mill ourselves, and we won't get milled. So that's a really nice card to be able to play. And some of the cards I'm playing more of in the sideboard, but many are just staying in their, let's call it, toolbox status. And we have some new toolbox toys, which are, for example, Abyssal Gatekeeper, because I really hate Bogles. Caustic Caterpillar as a recurring removal spell for artifacts and enchantments. It's pretty self-explanatory in this shell, I think. Another Crypt Rats against some matchup where I really want to draw it. Same is true for Spore Frog and Mesmeric Fiend. And of course, Thorn of the Black Rose as well, since I want Monarch decks to learn that playing Monarch is boring, and I think it's best demonstrated by playing some Monarch cards yourself, so they see how boring it is to have Monarch taken away from you and just watch the opponent draw card after card. So yeah. Until they ban Monarch cards, I will probably do this with every deck I can, at least jamming 1 or more copies of Monarch cards into the sideboard or even the main deck, as long as people haven't realized how meta defining it is, in fact, in most cases or most decks. Some new additions are Weather the Storm, since I don't want to die to burn before I have resolved all my stuff I need and set up the engine of getting back Golgari Brown Scale like 3 times from the graveyard each turn, which by then we will heal for 6 life a turn. But until then, I will need some some life gain, and since they don't attack all that much, Spore Frog isn't that great in the matchup, so we need Weather the Storm to keep ourselves alive. And against some other matchups, we want Penumbra Spider. It's on the one hand really good in some grindy matchups since it leaves behind 2/4 black spider creature token with reach when it dies, and we can of course get it back. So we will draw out a lot of removal spells with it when we have the upper hand and just need to apply pressure to draw out the enemy's removal. We can do it, but I don't know if I'll even board it in there. Depends on the matchup. I definitely bought it in against decks with many flyers, so which you might already have guessed which decks those are. So that's the deck list in the sideboard. I think I managed to get together the main ideas of the deck and let's take a look at one or two starting hands where this is a classic starting hand, I would say, from my own experience with the deck. You have some amount of early interaction, especially like Fume Spitter, which I would probably want to get down turn 1, like play Swarm, get down Fume Spitter, turn 2, play Rot Farm, take back the Swamp, turn 3, depends a bit, but I'd probably open with Commune with the Gods, take probably Thorn, play a tap land, and then turn 4 I would have Thorn if I want to. It's a bit of a slow start, but we will get through the early game probably with like Fume Spitter, Chump Blocking, Thorn of the Black Rose. We could of course also play Orgo depending on the matchup, and we should at some point be able to draw either a tutor for Tortured Existence or Tortured Existence itself, where here we see we draw Vessel and we hit Tortured Existence finally by turn like 5 or 6. This should be, and that should be early enough, I guess. We might be a bit behind on board by then, but we have all the tools to recover, unless it's a super aggressive opponent's deck which you can't beat all of the times, but you have a really good shot against, for example, mono black, against some slower and more mid-rangey other decks, and it's a lot of fun playing those matchups. So if you suspect the meta is a lot like that, I recommend you try out this deck, although it has kind of fallen a bit out of favor. So here's another hand where you see it's not the fastest hand, but we can at least put down Buyuka Bog, use the mana from Buyuka Bog next turn to cycle Ash Barrens, put down Golgari Rot Farm, put down the Swamp we will get from this, put down Tortured Existence, Viscera Seer, or something like, and from there on, slowly but surely, take over with generating value by having Tortured Existence, Grave Scrabbler, Crypt Rats as a removal spell, Augur of Skulls to have the opponent discard their hand, another Grave Scrabbler, and at some point we might want to use Viscera Seer to, for example, sacrifice a Grave Scrabbler to get the Grave Scrabbler back with another Grave Scrabbler by discarding this one, for example, into the Tortured Existence, to get back this one, and like Frozen Tusker, and we can do that over and over again until we have a full grip of cards and the opponent has no cards at all left in hand. And at some point we will also hit a dredge creature to get into the yard, either by milling it into the graveyard with Commune with the Gods, or by just discarding it into Tortured Existence, and we will hit one land drop after the other, and with each land drop we get probably an additional activation of Tortured Existence or Crypt Rats, and with every non-land we are drawing, we are as well drawing some gas, so it's also most of the time really nice. You can win a lot of games, but you won't win them too quickly, so if you are a not so patient player, I don't recommend the deck. Otherwise, I think it's a really cool and interesting deck with a different angle on winning and generating card advantage. And I think against some amount of the meta. It's really well positioned, and you can really get far with it. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I could win you to play this deck 1 or 2 times, try it out. And I myself typically like to play blue decks and or tempo and aggressive decks, but I still enjoy this deck because of the many possibilities it offers to you, all the possible paths you can go, and really put the engine together. And then as soon as it runs, it's just a nice feeling. So that's why I recommend it for you. As I said, I hope you try it out. Feel free to comment on how I can improve and what decks I can feature, of course, as well. And yeah, otherwise, I hope you're doing great. I wish you a great day, and until next time, au revoir.